So let's talk about how we should be starting not should, in our opinion.
Because everything you do is wrong.
Hear.
Here's the right way to do it.
Oh gosh, that's my grandpa's name.
Why do you say it like?
Well, because people might be like, Melvin. like for those of you who have never had a sandwich before, this is what a sandwich is like.
That was the strangest thing. What are you even trying to say? No, leave it. People need to know. It's all right.
Welcome to the Third Hour podcast, where we talk about church culture and discuss real topics within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My name is Mimi, and I'll be your host, and I'm joined by my co-host and husband, Eric. How are you, Eric?
Doing great.
Good. Well, this is our first episode ever of the Third Hour podcast, which I just said, you guys, I'm a little nervous, so bear with me.
She's been stressing out this whole time, getting prepared, getting ready.
No, it's just because we want to do a good job. So we figured since this is the first episode, we would talk a little bit about what you can expect from this podcast, what we hope to achieve. But don't worry, that sounded so serious. Like it's not going to be.
This is going to be the most boring podcast episode ever. Just skip it if you're not interested. Just hop into the next one.
No. But we will also have timestamps in the description. So if you do want to skip to different parts of the podcast, you are welcome to do that as well.
Not everybody loves everything. We get it. So if you see something a little bit boring or not relevant, just jump ahead and we will not feel bad about it at all.
Okay, Eric, why don't you tell people like what our mission for the podcast is?
Right now, I feel like every time you go to church, you're always hearing on Sunday someone talking about, oh, I just heard this great podcast. They, shared a lot of good stuff. They're all just very spiritual though. And
that's making it sound like we're not going to be spiritual at all.
We're not going to have the spirit at all. No, but they're very, very spiritual focused, very, very like doctrinal focused, I feel like. And so a lot of the time for me, they're the kind of podcast where I'm like, okay, on Sunday when I'm getting ready for church, I'm going to listen to this or that kind of thing. And I know some people, they'll listen to that kind of thing throughout the week, but the idea is to make this be something a little bit more fun and entertaining so we can kind of listen to it any day and be positive and uplifting. But the other side of it too is trying to make sure that we look at topics in a very real way where we're not just sugarcoating everything, looking at everything sunshine and rainbows, because there are some real questions in the church, real struggles people have, and want to give them kind of a fair thought and a fair conversation, so we're actually taking a look at both sides of issues and real concerns people have, maybe concerns we've thought about and been able to work through, or things people have brought up to us.
Absolutely. And I think the church as a whole in the last few years has had a huge focus on transparency. We have the Joseph Smith papers, we have the Saints book series, and I feel like that's a very real criticism that many people have had of the church in past years, like when our parents were our age, where they felt like they found new information that they thought the church was hiding. And I totally get where they're
burying this. I couldn't find it anywhere.
Right. Absolutely. And now the church has really been trying to embrace things, I feel like. So with this podcast, like Eric said, like we want to talk about these issues. We want to say, this is what people may be concerned about, but here's the other side. But wherever you're at, most people watching or listening, we imagine, are members of the church, but all are welcome. And hopefully we can discuss some of these real issues that you might not hear brought up in Relief Society. And I did want to also make a note that, we're both members of the church, but we're not speaking on behalf of the church. These are just our opinions. I mean, we're just normal members.
Yeah, we're no kind of special authority on the subject. We're literally just two members of the church trying to live, the gospel, trying to live the way you're trying to fully live the principles of the gospel as best we can. And so we'll give our perspective, but it does not make it doctrine, does not make it official. But hopefully it's well thought out and not just, hopefully it's really well thought out and it's actually kind of a complete thought and not just one-sided where, some people, they're just like, oh, just have faith, it'll be great. And it's like, that's cool and all, but did you even think about it? Did you even consider it? And, do you have anything behind it? That works for some people, that's cool. But for a lot of people, that doesn't work to just kind of have, blind faith,
Absolutely. And now in today's society, is that... You'll learn this about me. Sometimes I feel like I make up phrases, but in today's environment with social media, I feel like a lot of anti and church history and a lot of criticisms have been brought to light. It's something that people in past generations haven't had to deal with. They used to say just avoid anti-material, because a lot of it you would have to seek out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if that's the best advice. That's just me personally. But I mean, regardless, that is not even an option anymore, because we're surrounded by it. If you're on LDS TikTok, LDS Instagram, it's everywhere. So why we're not going to hide it. We're not going to say, just have blind faith. Like, we're going to discuss these things and hopefully prepare you if you haven't seen some of these criticisms, where if you do face them, you understand the issue and you're not shook into your core. Because, I've been doing this for a few years now, where I've been a part of LDS social media. And when I started on Saints Unscripted, there were a few comments that I would see that did shake me a little bit. And just because of how they were brought up, and I'd never heard of these things. And it was challenging. There's a lot of great resources out there too, like Fair LDS, and we can get into some of those specifics. And hopefully this podcast can be a resource for you guys, but I've been there and I know how it feels. So if you're someone where you may feel a little shaky with your faith right now because of a concern or something, new information you feel like you received, I'm with you. We stand by you. Your feelings are totally valid, and we're hopefully here to help.
Yeah. And I mean, it's totally normal to have questions or doubts or whatever. So like, I feel like that's another thing. People feel ashamed that they're like, we had this lesson on Sunday and somebody said something. And to me, it sounded really weird, but everybody else was like, oh yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And then they go home and they're like, oh, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Why did everyone else, why were they all satisfied with that answer, but I'm left still questioning that? And why did that not quite sit right with me or seem weird? Something's wrong with me. I shouldn't be here.
I need to pray more.
What am I doing wrong? That kind of thing.
Absolutely. And you're never alone. Like, if you have a question, I'm sure someone else has that same question too. So I hope that moving forward in the church, we really can get to a place where we're like, questions are okay. And it's okay to have doubts. And
well, I mean, we talk about that a lot, right? And we're like, the whole church started with Joseph Smith asking questions.
Right.
So people hear that, but it's almost like, only ask certain questions.
Right.
Only ask the easy ones that I can handle in a primary lesson. Otherwise, don't ask questions.
Totally. So that is what we hope to address. We hope you'll join us. But on the other hand, we're going to have some of those deeper conversations, but we do want this to be a fun, lighthearted podcast. We're going to have games. We're going to have audience submissions. We're going to react to TikToks, whatever. So if you have anything you want us to react to, please send it our way. We also really want to answer advice. Like, if you need advice, we're not experts. I don't know why from a young age, I was like, how people would write in like, Dear Sally in the newspaper? Yeah. I was like, that's going to be me. I don't know at what point in my life I decided
you're such an expert on life that everyone needs to ask you.
Yeah. No, I don't know how where that stems from, but I know how it is. Like, if you want advice, like relationship advice or whatever, like from an LDS perspective, if you don't have family or friends to talk to, if you just go to a general relationship advice thing, it's sometimes just different. So hopefully we can do a little bit of that too. So we do have an email. You can always email us at podcast@thirdhour.org or send us a direct message on Instagram @third.hour. Feel free to follow us along. We will be doing polls on stories to get your guys' opinions on future topics. If you have any guests that you would love to see, let us know and we'll do our best.
There you go. I mean, the whole point of this is be engaging with you guys, people who are watching us on YouTube, listening to us only in a podcast on your drive, whatever it is. So we want to be able to make us, like I said, be able to apply to people. So when you guys give us the topics you're interested in, the questions that you have, or funny stories that you have or whatever, which wants to be fun too, then that's going to make it a lot better. I mean, we have some ideas for topics, of course. So we think they're good ideas, but we'd rather get what you guys think are good ideas.
Yes. And speaking of us and what we think are good ideas, let's introduce ourselves.
What?
Okay,
that was a terrible transition.
I know. I'm going to work on the transitions, guys.
Wow.
That was a little rough. Take it away.
Yeah, let's get into it. You should introduce yourself first because people have a chance of recognizing you.
People recognize you sometimes.
True. Actually, that's the weirder thing. When Mimi first started doing YouTube and stuff, people would see her and recognize her in public. And then every once in a while, I was in a video or whatever, and people would recognize me. And I started talking. I was like, yeah, that's the craziest thing. They recognized me. And she thought I was getting full of myself and was like, oh, you think you're so cool now? People recognized you. And I was like, no, it's not that. I'm like, it is so strange that they're a big enough fan of you to recognize me. And like, that was wild.
I think they're just a fan of you.
There you go. I guess if you guys are fans of me, let us know. Don't say anything weird, all right? Actually, don't let us know if you're fans of me.
Okay, well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mimi.
Wow, she went there, guys.
And I am from American Fork, Utah. American Fark. That's what... Have you ever heard people say that?
Yeah, but does anybody say it like that there?
No, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, oh, American Fark. I'm like, I don't know anyone who says it like that.
Yeah. I just think it's funny that your city's named after a fork.
Okay, I was so confused when I moved to Utah because they were like the weirdest names of cities. And then when I was Miss American Fork, people thought that it was like they didn't know
like
what it was. Like a patriotic thing or like utensils. They're like, you have the
Star-Spangled Fork? Like what?
Yeah, people were way confused. But I'm from American Fork. Well, I'm originally from Michigan. I moved to Utah when I was like 13. So I just kind of claim it. And I haven't had to introduce myself for a while. I went to BYU. I studied communications, and now my career has been in social media marketing. I worked on the corporate side. I own my own business doing social media management and consulting. And I also was a host on Saints Unscripted for a few years when I was going to school, and it was the best experience ever. I miss it. That's why I'm excited to be kind of doing this. I also have a YouTube channel that I hardly post on. I'm more active on Instagram and TikTok.
You always are like, I'm going to be so consistent on YouTube now. Like, I'm ready.
I know.
She makes like 2 videos and then she's like, oh, I forgot. This is like really demanding and I'm so busy.
It's true. It's more like when I started my business and then my clients would take more of my time. And then I was pregnant. So I feel like that's a good excuse. But anyway, I love to post on social media about like modest fashion, LDS, news, church culture, stuff like that. So I've been in this world for a little bit. And like I mentioned, we have a baby. He's about a year old now, which is so crazy.
They grow up so fast.
They do, and I can't talk about it for long or I will start crying. I cry about every day because right now at the time of filming.
That's not an exaggeration. She legitimately does.
Like in a good way, not like crying because it's hard, but it's because at the time of filming, he's almost 1. So it's like, I'll just look at his little baby.
My little baby's not a baby anymore. He's so big.
He really is so big.
And people with actually like big kids are going to be like, wow, girl, just wait. Just you wait.
I know, but his name is Eli, and he's like the best thing that's ever happened to us. I love being a mom.
He's awesome.
Okay, I'm really gonna get emotional.
Great.
Why don't you start?
That's good. So my intro is gonna be a lot shorter.
Was mine too long?
No, I just have a lot.
I just touched the microphone.
You can touch the mic. It's fine.
I can?
Don't.
I scratched it. It's gonna be like,
don't do that.
Okay, sorry.
As you can tell, we've never done a podcast before, so we're rookies. But yeah, I mean, my interest can be a lot shorter just because I don't have all the accolades of Mimi and the history.
Oh my gosh.
I'm Eric. I am Mimi's husband, and that's why I'm here. We like each other a lot, so she thought it'd be fun, to be together doing this.
Of course.
She's got the polished side of things, being on social media and everything. And I'm just some random guy that was raised in the church. So kind of gives 2 perspectives, I guess, that way. I also went to BYU, studied food science there. And then since then, I've just been working in the food industry and quality assurance since I graduated. And then, I guess we met over the summer, not technically at school.
Not over this summer.
Yeah, we met this summer and already have a baby. No, the way we met was over a summer. We were working in the same place, and then at the end of the summer, ended up dating, and the rest is history.
It wasn't weird though. Like it wasn't against.
It was very weird.
It wasn't against the. I mean, I guess it kind of was.
No, it wasn't. We literally waited. We waited till the end of the summer, and that's when we started dating because. I know. She was my supervisor.
I was his manager. Yeah. That's why. But
anyway,
don't worry.
That's not the point of this podcast, though.
But we've been married for 5 years. Yeah. Well, 5.5 now. And even though we're married, like, don't worry, we're not going to be too lovey-dovey because Eric, oh my gosh, that was unhinged. We're not going to be too,
See how far we're sitting apart from each other? We're just setting the tone here, okay? We're not sharing one couch cushion. So, anyway.
But so this isn't going to be a relationship podcast is what I'm meaning
True.
to say.
And Mimi said, like, if you need relationship advice, but more if you have church questions and advice.
Yes.
I'm not opposed to relationship advice, but that's not the main focus here for sure.
We just might do a relationship advice today.
Whoa.
But speaking of introductions, this will be a better transition, everyone. Don't worry. Speaking of introductions, I wanted to get your opinion on what you think the best way to start a sacrament meeting talk is, because there are a lot of cliches. There are a lot of ways that are done pretty often.
Or too often, you might say.
So
I'm not here to call anybody out. We're not here to throw anybody under the bus for the way you start your talks.
Yeah.
But you have to realize some of them are a little overdone.
So what are the overdone ways to start your sacrament meeting talk?
Well, I mean, you started this off with one of them. For those of you who don't know me.
Yeah, who started that?
I mean, but it is a legitimate thing, right?
It is.
You get up at the front of church and you have a room full of potentially strangers, but you've met some people. Like, it makes sense. It's not a bad thing to do. It's just kind of funny now because so many people do it.
Totally. I wonder if in other churches it's the same phrase, or if they say, for those of you who I haven't met yet, my name, like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's true.
I wonder
it
if
is
it's
like
a little
always
different.
For those of you who don't know me.
Right.
Not any variation of that usually.
Right. And because do we ever say that in any other way? Like, for those of you who have never had a sandwich before, this is what a sandwich is like.
That was the strangest thing. What?
Please cut that out.
No, leave it. People need to know. It's
Tyson.
All right.
Tyson, please
You
save
can't just
me.
throw in Tyson's name so he cuts stuff out. He's going to get famous for how many times his name is said during this podcast because you keep trying to use it as a cop-out.
For those of you who've never, like, for those of you, people.
For those of you who don't know sandwiches. All right, that's enough on the first one. What else do we have?
Well, there's the Webster definition of your topic. That's a classic.
And here's the thing. Why do they always have to call out that it's the Webster definition?
Right.
They don't just say, I looked up the definition or this.
The Merriam. That is Webster.
Perseverance is defined as. Is, like, I feel like if you just hear speeches, that's what they would say, right? But instead in church, they say, I looked up the Webster definition of blah,
yeah, they're
blah, blah.
making the Webster dictionary sound it's like it's canon. Like,
yeah,
it's
I mean, that's the last book of scripture,
Gospels.
right?
Yeah.
You got the Bible, you got the Book of Mormon, the Pearl of Great Price, and the Webster dictionary.
That's good. What else do we have?
Did you just say that's good? Like, man, that was a good clip.
No, I meant just like that was funny.
We got it, guys. Good one.
Let's pack up. We got what we needed.
What's next? You have...
There's also the story of how you were asked to speak. Yeah.
The first time I heard that, I thought it was so funny.
Oh, yeah. As a kid, you're like dying.
I was sitting on my couch in my pajamas Thursday night. Well, it's always like Saturday night when they say it, right? I was sitting on my pajamas and I was just about to turn out the lights and go to bed. They're always like, I was about to turn my phone off, but then suddenly it lit up. And like, who turns their phone off at night? And they're like, I saw Bishop's number come up and I thought, well, better not answer that. And they're like, but it's okay, Bishop. We still love you. And then they give him like the death glare.
Yeah, they like turn around.
Yeah.
I kind of like when they turn around. I think it's kind of funny.
Have they ever done like little finger guns at him? You ever see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that. There's also just not defining, but just stating what you were asked to speak on. I was asked to speak on faith. And, I just, no shame if you've done that. I just think, let's spice it up a little bit. Let's give it a little something.
I kind of disagree. To me, that on this list, that's like the least cliche one to me because it's like so basic that it's not overused. Mm-hmm. It's obviously not the most exciting or interesting hook into a topic, but I feel like it's also never like bad, really.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. It's just, it reminds me of like almost a youth giving a talk because they're like, okay, I need to start and do
Their
these
mom
points.
wrote the name of the topic their mom wrote the name of the topic at the top, and then just like they accidentally read it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about how we should be starting not should, in our opinion.
Because everything
what
you do is wrong.
Hear.
Here's the right way to do it.
Oh gosh, you're gonna trigger people. Introducing yourself. Yes, yay, nay. What do you think?
I think, yeah, for sure. I mean, because really, like, you think about it, when you give a talk in church, what do people actually want out of it? Do they want the same explanation of what is faith and read a scripture they could have read to themselves at home? No, what their people are looking for is that personal element, right? And so sharing your personal stories, even introducing yourself as a person, then helps people just get bought in and to kind of, from the get-go, just understand you as a person better and then be invested in the topic.
Absolutely. I totally am with you. I think too, if you are part of a family, I think it's funny when you introduce like your spouse or your kids. If you're a newlywed, I want to hear how you met because I think it's so sweet.
Yeah, but sometimes people do that where they introduce how they met, but then like the wife goes first and she's like roasting the husband. Like, we never would have run into each other. My friend was trying to set us up for years, but he was just too afraid to ask me. So I had to go ask him, and I just plopped myself down and said, we're on a date.
That's not what happened with us.
No, but people say that, and you're sitting there so uncomfortable, like this poor guy, and he's like turning red on the stand, and I'm like, he's right there.
Right. No, try not to embarrass your spouse, because I feel like even if you think it's funny, if someone doesn't know you, they're like, wow, like they're really embarrassing.
I mean, people know their relationship, right? You know where the boundaries are with your spouse and everything. I mean, maybe if you're newlyweds, you don't. So err on the side of being nicer. But I mean, people realize. But the idea is like you don't want to roast them. You don't want to be mean because like it's literally church. All right, just be considerate.
Absolutely. So yes, introduce yourself. Also, if this is a tip for us, because we've moved around a lot since we've been married. We've been in like 100 new wards.
Whoa.
And
okay, that's like 6 actually, but.
I thought it was 100. So anyway, you want to like start with a conversation starter, especially if you're hoping to make friends in the ward. So I'll give an example. When we moved to Southern California, we were on the hunt for the best California burrito. If you've never had a California burrito,
for those of you who don't know California burritos.
Oh gosh. No, he's literally cutting that out, so we can't make that the running joke. So if you don't know what a California burrito is, look it up. So good. But anyway, when we spoke in church when we had just moved in, I said, we're looking for the best California burritos, so give us your recommendations, and if you want to come along with us on our search, let me know. And I feel like a couple people actually did come up and they're like, oh, I like California burritos. Like, it just is an easy way for people to start talking
especially
to you.
Food, people love food and they love sharing food with other people. So
totally.
If they can find out that you're into the same thing, because like that's see, California burritos for us are a bonding thing, because like I served in the California San Diego mission, and if you served there and didn't come out of it loving either California burritos or carne asada fries, I question if you really served in that mission a little bit, because it's part of our mission culture. And so that's when we met, Mimi was like, I don't even really like burritos. They're like not that great. And I was like, I don't know if you're that great. No, then she actually tried and was like, wow, you're right. These are flipping amazing. So yeah. They're great.
They are great.
But that was also a bonding thing for us. Like we have a photo of the first California burrito we shared together and how special that was. And that I think is why we are still together today.
So moral of the story, always share your favorite food at the start of your sacrament meeting.
There you go.
Another thing too, some people might be like, oh, I've lived in my ward for 100 years. People know who I am. I'm iconic. If you don't want to introduce yourself.
I'm iconic.
I mean, that's what I would be thinking. I'm thinking of brother. I don't know if we want to cut this out. Brother. No. Who is? I don't even know his name. The really old guy in New Mexico.
That's
and he used to be a stake president. Really old.
You seen Brother Payne?
Yes, Brother Payne. Brother Payne, if you're listening,
I'd be impressed.
There's no way he knows how to turn on a computer.
That is rude to say.
No, that is like genuine. Like genuinely.
He was a lawyer. He's a smart guy.
I'm not doubting that he was a smart guy. I mean, is. Sorry. Okay.
We gotta cut all this, Tyson.
We gotta cut this out. So if you're saying like, I'm iconic, I don't want to introduce myself, here's how you can start. I would go right into it with a story because if you're watching General Conference, what do? It's like follow the lead of the general authorities. They get right into it.
No, I'm pretty sure the new apostles don't get up there and say, for those of you who don't know me, my name is John F. Frankenson.
That would be pretty funny. So anyway, that's just our opinions on how we like to hear Sacrament Meeting Talk started. Let us know if you have other opinions.
Yeah, if we missed one of the big cliches or if you disagree, roast us in the comments.
So we're going to end today's episode with a little advice corner. So since this is our first episode, we don't have any submissions from you yet. So we did just find this on Reddit. We'll be keeping it anonymous. But in the future, if you need advice, if you have a question or something you'd like us to discuss, again, email us at podcast@thirdhour.org or send us a message on Instagram at third.hour. And let's get into the advice. So the title is Seeking Relationship Advice from an LDS Perspective.
Oh, so remember, we're not doing relationship advice, but here it is.
I know.
We reserve the right to talk about relationships.
This one, it ties in to you'll see. This is kind of a long post, but I could really use some advice from an LDS perspective on an issue tied to dating and finding answers to prayers.
I mean, that's a big thing because usually when people go online looking for relationship advice, like literally everyone says, divorce them.
Right.
First
totally.
thing, like, they're like, they didn't make my toast the right way this morning. They're like, cut it off. How could they not know the way you like your toast? This is a toxic relationship. And you're like, guys, I wanted advice and not people trying to tear apart my life.
Not saying that divorce is not sometimes the right answer. Well, I guess that's kind of controversial. I come from a divorced family.
It says that in the church handbook, like that there are situations. Obviously, divorce is a very serious thing. Mm-hmm. We should not be throwing that advice around willy-nilly.
Right.
There are times where it can be the right answer, but it's not 100% of the time. I can tell you that.
Absolutely. So that's what we're here to help with. Hopefully, we are just two people though, so don't take our advice with a grain of salt.
Hey, we're still married after a whole 5 years, so we are experts on relationships.
I do feel like we are though compared to newlyweds. Remember when we were little newlyweds?
Now
we are like old.
Wow. Do you realize that like 95% of people that might hear this just were offended by that?
It's okay.
And the other 5% are agreeing because they're like, y'all are ancient. Oh my gosh.
Okay, I'll say that I feel old because I'm in Young Women's and I feel old compared to them. But I shouldn't be comparing myself to the young women. Anyway, let's get into this. I'm a female in my early 20s, and a few months ago, I met a guy on a dating app who fits pretty much everything I've been praying and hoping to find in a guy.
Nice.
I found him when I wasn't really expecting to find anyone and immediately had a good feeling and an instant connection to him. We started talking and things seemed to be heading in a good direction for a couple months. He told me he really liked me, but after a couple months of talking, he suddenly ghosted me with no explanation.
Ooh.
I'm still heartbroken and I'm finding that there are a lot of layers to this situation for me. The first one is I'm sad about him ending things because I still really, really like him and miss talking to him. Now because I've met a guy who had everything I was looking for, being with anyone else would feel like settling. I'm also struggling because he seems to have everything I've been praying to find in a guy for years. He had all the important non-negotiable qualities I want and even has a lot of kind of superficial qualities that I like. I'm struggling because I felt like my prayers were finally being answered only to have them slip away. I'm feeling confused as to why these prayers were only answered temporarily. Also, I've been really working on learning to listen to the Holy Ghost and trust my gut. I thought I was starting to get a lot better at it, and I had a really good feeling about this guy. While things were good for a while, the heartbreak I felt kind of outweighs the good stuff that I felt. Now I'm wondering if I really do know how to listen to the Spirit and trust my gut, and I feel overall very confused about things. Has anyone here ever been in a similar situation, and how did it turn out? And does anyone have any advice that they can give me on how to trust God and move forward?
Dang, that's a lot to unpack.
But also a very real situation.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people can probably relate.
I mean, there's a lot of layers to that because you have the relationship part of it, you have the receiving revelation part of it, you have, confidence in yourself and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. The heartbreak. Wow. Where Where should we start off with
First
that?
of all, I'm so sorry because I feel like heartbreak just sucks. And especially if you had a really good feeling about them, and especially if you were talking a lot, it's not just losing a potential, romantic relationship, but it sounded like it was also a friendship. So regardless, it's hard. Give yourself some time to heal. Take it day by day.
Especially being so abrupt like that, just going from what you think is a great relationship that I'm sure you might have been hearing a little wedding bells in the background or whatever, and then suddenly gone. That's rough. And
I hope anyone listening who may have a tendency to ghost people, I've been there. It is.
I'm like, that's her. Okay. I'm like, listening. I'm like, what is she about to say here? Because like, whenever we talk to people about dating back, like probably while we were dating in relationships and stuff, so you had a lot of, friends still and trying to figure that all out. Her advice, I feel like, was always like, oh, well, just ghost them. It's easier.
I would not.
It's just cleaner. It's so much easier for you that way.
Depending on the situation.
I just feel like I heard you say just ghost them way too many times.
Eric, that I don't even know what you're referring to, but I will say, yes, I'm very non-confrontational, and I feel like a lot of the times it just seems easier in the moment, but reading this, I'm like, I would never ghost someone. Ever.
That's true.
Like, look at
the time she said it was always earlier on.
Yeah.
It was not like, I'm engaged to a guy and I don't know if it's working out.
Ghost them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, just if you're listening from that perspective, I think it's valuable to hear that. So as far as feeling like the spirit was like confirming this relationship, and how can you rebuild that trust, and was it really the spirit? I'm sure she may be asking herself.
Yeah. So it's interesting. As you read this story, it kind of reminded me a little bit of myself dating right after coming back from my mission. Something Mimi and I have actually talked about, because like essentially, try to keep this from getting super in depth or whatever. When I came home from my mission, like they hype you up and they're like, all right, guys, you finished your mission. Next phase, get married, and they make it sound like this is the next thing. You go from here right to that. You jump right into it. You spend all your time and attention on and make it happen, which is not a great mindset to have, I would say, honestly. Marriage is very important, and it's important to have that as a goal and something to work towards, but it's something you work towards, not something that you sprint towards, and not something that you just try to make happen immediately. But like, I came home with that gusto of like, I'm gonna meet a girl and I'm gonna marry her. Like, I'm gonna make this happen. But that's not how life works.
Right. Okay?
Spoiler, if you haven't figured that out yet, it doesn't work that way. And people who've gotten past that are all laughing like, yeah, no, not at all. So I remember starting dating, and then I found this girl that I was like really interested in, and I felt really good about the potential of a relationship. Like, so this is a little bit different here. I was not in a relationship with this girl even, but there was some potential there. Kind of like we both kind of shared some interests, and then we had some friends that kind of, I would guess, I want to say like made the relationship more serious than it was, but it's like we actually saw each other more often than like if this was just dating only. Instead, we had like friend circles together, so it's like we interacted more. So anyway, the thing that complicated things, I was very interested from the start, and I was like, wow, I see a lot of, like she's saying, a lot of these great qualities that I think could work. I'm seeing a lot of potential here. Like, wow, this could be it. God might be throwing me a nice slow pitch that I could just hit that home run. Just that mentality of like, oh, I've got to get married. Like, I got to make this happen. And then it was interesting because she had just gotten out of a very serious relationship and was just like, yo, I'm not ready for anything right now. And so I was like, okay, I'll just wait a little bit. But this is definitely going to be it. I had that mentality of like, oh, well, that's not a no, that's a not yet. And so I was just kind of like, I'll just wait. And so I was praying a lot, and I kept getting this spiritual impression to just wait. Just wait. And I remember thinking like, oh, God's telling me, give her some time, and we're getting, it's going to happen. And it sounds weird to say, like, it wasn't necessarily I'm like, oh, I love this. I wasn't even to the point of love yet or anything like that way. But for some reason, like, I was already jumping to the thought of like, oh, this could be a marriage.
Totally.
Without even a relationship happening, which, like, thinking back, that's such a weird thing to say. But like, I think it's just because of that, like, high pressure I had or whatever, just thinking about it that way. So then I was like, oh, just wait means just wait and it's gonna happen. But that is not the person in the story is not Mimi. So this is not the right person for me. And so I found as I was waiting, then suddenly like we kind of just ended up going separate ways. And I was like, wait, but I was told to just wait. But shortly after we went separate ways, that's when I met Mimi. And I was like, well, this is way different. You know, like, sure, that girl, she was a great person, still is. I'm sure I haven't talked to her in a long time because that's how it goes. But like, just because you find someone with great qualities that you see potential there, like that's not everything. Even this girl, she had a 2-month relationship with this guy. A 2-month relationship is so short, actually. Like the amount that she actually knew this guy, the amount she was invested in him, like it feels so huge. And part of that's just us making things seem huge. But then when I started dating Mimi, everything was just so different. Like it just felt completely different. Like things just kind of clicked in a way they'd never clicked before with anybody else. And it wasn't just my head saying like, oh yeah, I see qualities that could be good as a partner. And instead just like the whole relationship felt different, just fit right. And she also happened to have great qualities for someone I wanted to be married to. So it's like, oh, interesting. I didn't need to try and force this thing and make it happen. And like, oh, it's going to work. Instead, when I had this impression that God told me just wait, that means just wait and it'll work out with her. No, it was God saying, bro, chill out. You're getting too worked up over this person that doesn't even matter to you in the long run. Just wait, because I'm actually bringing someone to your life here pretty soon. And that's a whole separate story, how Mimi and I met and all the like, to me, God put Mimi in my life. You know, like there's a lot of different things that happen there to make that happen that like we should never have met.
Right.
But all these things lined up. And so like, that's where I can say like, God literally said, wait, I've got something in the works, man. And it's going to be awesome. And now here we are. And I could have saved myself so much emotional turmoil of like, I'm supposed to wait, but I don't want to wait. I want to try and date this girl, but then she needs space. And like, I could have actually just literally waited rather than like pretending to wait. And it would have been so much easier for me. But I mean, looking back now, that was a good learning experience for me. The same thing here where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting this revelation. What does it mean? We sometimes think we have the answer. We think, oh, this prompting must mean this. But then you move further and you realize, oh, that's not what that meant at all.
Right.
God was trying to tell me something, but I was not listening the way that I needed to. And I could have ruined our relationship because I could have said, oh, this amazing girl that like seems really interesting is coming into my life, but God told me to wait for this other one over here.
Yeah.
And then think about how I would have just missed out and totally messed up my life, you know, because we wouldn't be together. I mean, that's something Mimi and I talk about a lot, is just how awesome our relationship is. And we already said the point of this podcast is not to talk, like to be all lovey-dovey or whatever, but we really do love each other a ton. Our relationship is amazing. I can't imagine being with anyone else.
Yeah.
But if I was just so firm on this must be what this answer means, then I would not have been open to this opportunity and would have missed out on being with you.
Oh, that is sweet. So moral of the story, it doesn't mean it wasn't the spirit just because it didn't work out with that guy.
Yeah.
It just, last thing quick, it reminds me of that story that Elder Holland, I believe, shared in conference where there were 2 paths and they prayed about what, and they were lost and they prayed about which path they should go on. And they both felt strongly about one path and they started on it. And a couple miles down the road, it was a dead end. And they said, well, the young boy asked, well, why did we both feel strongly about going this way? And the older person said, you know, God didn't want us on our way questioning if that was right. This didn't take that much long out of our time, you know? So they turned around and went that way and they were great. So
was that Elder Holland and his dad?
It might have been. I wasn't sure. So I didn't want to just say
it's
it was.
Like, I think there's like what do they call it? Do they still call them Mormon messages or do they actually change the name?
Well, I think they changed the name. But so again, that's our take. If you have any advice, please leave it in the comments. And thank you so much for watching or listening to the Third Hour podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know your feedback and we will see you guys next time. Bye.